Barrage. Where should we start? Should we go with the
The better
opposite,
game.
the better game?
Let's go for the best game. I'm actually wearing a Cast t-shirt as well, so let's
Ah,
go for
very
that.
nice. Um,
Last time I can
where
wear it this season.
where do we start with it? Because it was what was the final score? 52-23, I think it was, which probably doesn't quite tell the entire story.
I
But
don't.
well,
I
Toulon were the superior side, but I don't think they were 29 points better.
No, absolutely not. That's where you can start with that game. Is that was a completely um
Varnished result.
yeah, completely unrepresentative scoreline because Cast were absolutely fantastic, I thought, for a lot of this game. Their defense was brilliant. Their their own kind of basics and everything we expect from Cast, like the forward play and nuggetiness and just a bit of nous and this timing of when they're able to kind of turn it on and their own attacking game. Um, yeah, I thought Cast were great.
Yeah, they also
Um,
served up one of my favourite moments of the season, which was Abraham Papa, who's had an amazing season.
yeah,
But his his try, I know we use this analogy quite a lot, but is truly like something out of schoolboy rugby. Free kick, tap and go about 30 meters out.
yeah,
And firstly, he nearly manages to like volley the tap and go. He's like pumped up pre-tap and
yeah,
go, taps it above his head and then just straight lines it through David Ribbons
yeah,
and
and someone else, and like Facundo Issa or something like that.
Alan Gahu, and
Yeah,
then shoves off Jean-Baptiste Gross and just goes under the post. So that combined like near enough a quarter of a ton
yeah,
of on his way
more
to
than
the
that.
goal.
Like
More
it's
than
nearly
that,
like
yeah,
half a
nearly
ton.
half a ton. Yeah, so that was very enjoyable.
It was like because I'd seen you post about that, and then I watched the game afterwards and was like, "Oh my God, that is just not that is direct." But
It's
how
incredible,
has
isn't it?
that happened in an elite game of professional rugby?
Mad, completely mad.
Um, although Facundo Issa kind of had his own moment in what became the Jaminet try, the one where he kind of gets it on the 22, his own 22, and powers through quite a few big forwards and gets the ball away to Nicolo, who was absolutely ridiculous
Ridiculous.
yet again. And he makes Demora look a bit silly without having to. Well, obviously he's rapid, but he didn't look like he had to do too much. And then the ball to Jaminet, who, yeah, has a pretty simple job. But Nicolo, I thought was outstanding. Um,
It seems
East
astonishing that he's on his way to Lyon.
Yeah. I mean, they
Um,
talked about it on commentary, like kind of like, why is he going? And they were like, well, money talks.
yeah,
You'd
yeah, he
imagine.
was he was remarkable. I can't remember exactly, but his stats from the game in terms of like your meters and defenders broken, defenders beaten, and tackles broken were the sort of things that you just don't see ever. Like it was completely ridiculous, and it looked that way. Yeah, I mean Toulon. I think, as you say, they weren't 29 points better, but they were probably a little bit ahead of the game. Cass had a bit unlucky with injuries throughout.
Injuries, yeah.
We're missing good Hugh going into this, and then were a bit knackered in the back line. I think Errata ended up on the wing, didn't he, for a bit?
Yeah,
Couldn't quite
LeBrun,
work out what was going on with. There's a little bit of Fernandez at 10, then 9, and Errata. Yeah, it was all a little bit.
LeBrun, well, in getting yellow carded, the head contact absolutely wiped him out cold. And he was kind of very much being helped, like one of those ones where, both I think it was Barney on commentary and Mertz were like, well, he's just not coming back on. Like he will
Yeah,
not be returning off that yellow card period. Um, and Demora came on. I don't know. I feel like Demora and Palace like kind of the same player, but like, what are they? Are they like a fullback? Are they a winger? Do they step in at 10? Like Palace kicked goals before Fernandez came on. I don't know. LeBrun was quite clearly the first choice 10. They don't really have a backup 10 with Popolan injured.
mm,
I think they probably should have gone as they did. And then Palace went off, which didn't matter because they brought on Fernandez for the goal kicking. And it seemed like they started with Demora onto the wing and Fernandez at 10 and Arata at 9, which would have made the most sense. And then they switched it, which I don't really understand because Arata was brilliant at 9 and has been all season. And Fernandez feels like one of those nines in France that should be able to play 10 pretty comfortably in the way that he kind of kicks and manages play. So they just ran out of steam, really. They had a 6-2 split, and they only had two backs on the bench, I think.
Yeah. They usually go for 5-3 cast. I think they probably saw Toulon and thought, well, this.
Yeah. Did I lose you there?
No, I think I'm back.
Okay.
Yeah.
But this game, I guess, was about you mentioned it there, Toulon's power. Their pack is big and has been all season. It's been very good. But I've said all season, like the power in the back line is like something to be reckoned with. And obviously the headline grabbing moment towards the end is 43-year-old Nonu, just direct, vintage. To be fair, I don't know if Nonu did do that back in the day. He was a bit more nuanced, but that was just a proper big bloke running hard and straight off a flat ball from 9. But for me, the interesting
accelerates quickly enough for a 43-year-old,
and the power to have that. He's still, I know, like one of the tacklers is Arata, who's about 3 stone, but
that's not a guy. It's not a guy who looks like someone who's come back from
being on the beach. Yeah,
yeah, remarkable.
He's not exactly done a Stephen Donald. But the interesting thing for me there was, do you see who was packing down at 8 in that scrum?
Oh, I don't know if I did. Who was it? To someone niche.
So we flagged that Nonu was a medical joker for Olivon and could potentially be packing down at 8.
Yeah.
So you think
he came on for Issa, didn't he?
And he came on for Issa, but they moved Lestify and Ganuku into the pack. And we've been saying all season, he's kind of quite often he plays like Ardi Surveyor, just like in and around the fringes, picking and going. Maybe the transition's happening. He's coming for you, Ardi, when he comes back to Crusaders. Maybe he's he's an unbelievable player. Like the physicality that he brings. If they do go into that game next week with Nonu and Ganuku at any point in the centres, I think that's and I think it will be that pack that I guess we'll come on to the bit of a preview in a bit, but it will be their pack that
can upset.
If they can, yeah. Should we move on to the next game and then we'll do?
Let's do it. Bayonne. We had Alex Moon on last week, and good omens. It appears. What was an absolutely dripping wet Stade Touché, like full. Some of the wet weather rugby was quite something. But they were
the quality of the rugby, given how wet it was.
Yeah.
Like at one point, the rain was like, it looked like kind of shards of ice almost. Like the droplets were that big. They were kind of looked like lightning bolts, like going through the air.
I think it was one of like the Camille Lopez kicks in the second half when they zoom in on him. Yeah, it looks like there's just chunks coming out of the sky. It was quite something. I haven't seen a huge amount of this, but fairly comfortable from what I saw and what I've read.
Yes, I mean, if you wanted wet weather rugby and you wanted some fly halves to kick you around and sort you like that sort of 10-man game, Sagons, Lopez, and Erdebajeta would probably be 3 of your top picks. But actually, Erdebajeta missed a few kicks. I think he kind of struggled with his it was clearly tough goal kicking for the underfoot. And he didn't, I think the Bayonne just got their kicking game a bit better. Like Tiberian's got a huge boot. There was one beautiful long range kick from like 50-22 from 22 to 22 almost. And that led to some points after a few phases. And I think, Bayonne just turned up a bit more. Like their forward carriers were just a bit more in the game than Clermont. They just had a bit more ball. They were able to keep the ball a bit more. And Sagons was good at kicking them around the park. And then there was a moment of magic not really from Cami Lopez, because that crossfield kick is like horizontal.
It's a brilliant finish.
In both senses of the word. It's like Horizontal in that it doesn't really go forward, and horizontal it doesn't really get off the ground. But Tom Spring, one on one, does the rest basically, doesn't he?
Who the bits I saw, it looked like he had a brilliant game, Tom Spring. He's
Yeah,
been really
it
good for them this season.
and he had a chunk out of his face from a that he went off for an HIA in the first half, um, with like proper bruise and like Vaseline like everywhere. But yeah, he had a really really good game, and that was and you know in that it was a sort of game where one try would probably be enough, and
Yeah.
it kind of proved that way. Um, I guess the two teams that would have been suited to that sort of game as well. It's kind of good that that one was the wet one and Toulon Cast was the dry one.
Yeah.
Alex Moon himself played really well as well. But it's just nice to see like a Turia obviously came into that with a shitload of emotion. Their first top 14 barrage game since it's been the top 14.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe
First
so.
playoff since like 93 or 94, I think. Um, and it clearly meant a lot to Artur Aturia.
And he was the one who got to boot it off at the end. Did you
Yeah,
see that?
yeah,
Which was quite cool.
yeah.
Yeah, very good.
But they have the enviable task next weekend in Lyon on Friday night. At least they get a 7-day turnaround of playing Toulouse. Can you see them causing an upset?
Um, I don't know if I can.
They
I
beat them at
just
Stade
think
Jean Daget. They did
they
beat them at
did.
Stade.
I would love them to, and I know there's still a few question marks on a couple of injuries, right, for Toulouse. But I
Yeah,
just think that, well, like we just know their depth and quality and their and pretty much any team, any strength for pretty much any side in the top 14. You'd probably say Toulouse is like at least on a par or kind of better than maybe up front with the exception of like Toulon.
yeah,
But I think I'd like to think it might be quite close. Toulouse, a few of their big guys are coming back, having not played for a little bit. But Bayonne have been so kind of smart and they've got a way of playing, haven't they? They're not gonna overplay and shoot themselves in the foot. You're gonna have to beat them.
yeah,
They're not going to come in and flake. So I think probably a hurdle too far, but why not? Why not?
yeah. And I mean, apologies to people that have been listening to us throughout the season. We've said all along, if you can get at this Toulouse team, it is at scrum time and possibly, depending on the day, on their line out. Their line out can be exceptional, but I think Bayonne's defensive line out is absolutely outstanding with Shuzanu,
Mm,
Aturia, Rodrigo Bruni. Yeah, they've got brilliant line out defense, mainly Aturia, and their scrum is really good. Like, especially with Tanguy, even without Tatafu, like Luke Tanguy in there.
mm.
Um,
Swan Cormenier, he's had a brilliant season.
yeah, yeah. I think there's
Really
there's
good front
enough there's
row.
enough there in the physicality that they bring
Yeah.
in just keeping that narrow game. There's enough that they could cause Toulouse problems, but you say that, and then you'll just have like a Willis turnover or like a ridiculous like Flamand counter ruck, and any progress will just be nullified and you're under your own sticks because I don't know some Mali has done something outrageous or whatever. Like they're a very tough team to beat.
Yeah.
It feels like they haven't played for ages. I feel like I
Yeah,
haven't
I was
seen
thinking
Toulouse
this
in bloody ages.
because they played. I mean, they were only at Perpignan the other week, weren't they? But a slightly they had a few big hitters, but a slightly changed side.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think there's just been so much other sort of showpiece rugby going on. They've rather slipped to the back of the mind slightly.
yeah, which is worrying. That's slightly ominous. That could mean that they're. I think they will come into this slightly undercooked, but that will be like a first half where it's a bit scratchy, doesn't quite click, and then it could easily be like 40-point demolition in the second half because when they click they are relentless.
Absolutely. Should we hold that
Next one,
there?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and do the next one.
Record. Okay, and that leaves us with Toulon Bordeaux on the Saturday night as well. Is it a late
Yeah,
kickoff?
yeah, yeah.
Well, that's good. That looks well, that's enticing, I would say, from afar.
It
Um,
looks more. likely than the other one to get a result from a barragiste, I would say. And I
Yeah,
genuinely think it might happen.
yeah.
I don't know. Every time I doubt Bordeaux, they seem to be pretty good. So yeah. But I feel like if there is another team other than Toulouse that can beat Bordeaux, if I could pick, ironically, if I could pick the from the other 12 teams in the league, it's the next best one that I think might be able to do it.
Funny how these things work out.
Yeah, mad that, isn't it? Call me old
with
fashioned.
with a decent bit of cash and history behind them.
Yeah.
Happen to be quite a good side.
But I think they've got the game plan
Yeah,
and the
completely.
way they play and the physicality, I think, is the moment. I think the way that the physicality kind of came through in the last 10 minutes, I guess, against Cast, with some of the guys they can bring off the bench in terms of like Alan Oisi and Nonu, and I guess Le Corvec's not quite
I
as
can't. I
the
would
same
not
profile,
have
but like,
at the start of the season. I would have not have said you would be talking in the top 14 semi-final, saying they can bring Nonu off the bench. It's
yeah.
incredible.
And well, Alan Oisi is old as well, isn't he? But yeah, yeah, he could bring Nonu off the bench, also bringing Gitto, Bastero.
A banner.
Yeah. Um, but Ben White is a really, top end player. Is pretty good player to, if Saran, he didn't have his best game, he was still pretty good. But, if he's not firing, you can bring Ben White off. But like the guys in the front row as well. I think Evaldi's been really good this season as a deputy hooker for Bobigny. And that is the one area that Bordeaux kind of lack a bit of oomph, I'd say. They don't lack depth in that pack and in the kind of physicality stakes. It's just the sheer oomph. I guess Nonu and Rohan Jansi van Rensburg are pretty like for like, aren't they? But their back five options are much more athletes than physical lumps, and their front row reserves have been shown to be, well, when they can get Falater and Tamefuna on and fit and in form, that's pretty good options. But when they haven't had that, like, you're looking at Laterad or Connoisseur or, you know, um, who's the lad? Boniface has kind of flattered to deceive a bit as well,
Yeah,
hasn't he? Like,
definitely.
they just don't quite have the grunt in that pack in the reserves that perhaps Toulon might do.
Yeah. Should be an amazing. Should be,
You've gone.
I'm back. I think we're good here.
Something should be amazing, but I don't know what.
It should be an amazing. It should be an amazing game, and going to go full cliches, but that kind of mix of. Oh, I'm not saying necessarily mix of styles, but mix of apparent strengths. I think in that that sort of electric backline against some guys who are heavy and will just blow you away if you don't get it right up front. It's really intriguing. It should be awesome.
Toulon's defense has been pretty good all year. I don't think we've not seen them. We've not seen their full team up against a full team of the other two. I guess you could say that.
Champions
The other
Cup we did
side.
against Toulouse.
Yes, and that was pretty damn
It was
close.
very close. Yeah, yeah,
And I think their defense is pretty good. They can handle it, and I think they can play. Like when
yeah.
you've got
100%.
Wanakolo, fucking anything can happen. And firing Ganuku, and there was just signs in that last 10, 15 minutes that they click, and it's just whether Toulon are a bit of like, can they click? They can win ugly, or they can win not ugly if they click. And I'd say about 2/3 of the season they've been winning ugly, and the rest has been like, look at that Saracens game when they turned it on. It's just glorious
Mm,
to watch. And I wonder if they can. It could be a thriller if they can kind
yeah,
of get that back on to click. And the other key thing I think is Jaminet, because
yeah. He's playing.
his boot could make all the difference. He missed
Yeah,
a few, but it's just he like I feel like he missed it because he hit it. If anything, he's hit it too well, Clive.
hitting it over the posts, and
Yeah,
therefore you
hitting it
can't
out the
tell if it's
ground.
gone
Yeah,
through. Yeah, yeah. He hammers it, doesn't he? Like it's quite
he
quite
barely
something.
touches it, and it just like It's
He
like
goes
it's like he's got a
miles.
rocket, like a cartoon rocket in his boot.
He's also been playing some. His all-round game is pretty phenomenal
Yeah.
as well, isn't it? That should be incredible. Any more on that, or should we just look forward to and envy people who are having a double header in Lyon this weekend?
Yeah, it's a good ticket, that, isn't it?
Very, very good.
Friday night, bit of rugby. Saturday in Les
Some of
Alpes,
the
Paul
best food
Focus. Yeah,
probably have in the world, and
trying to avoid drinking too much
chartreuse.
chartreuse
I've
and
actually got
Genepi.
I'm wearing that t-shirt now.
Ah, your
What's it
Musette de
called?
Lyon, yeah.
Musette, yeah. If anyone's
Yeah.
going, that is I mean, it's fabulous little restaurant in the Les Halles. But yeah, do be careful around the local spirits.